Good morning, everyone. My name is Trevor Valentino, and I am a senior at Seven Lakes High School. Growing up, I was always known as the skater boy. I love skateboarding, and I couldn't find myself doing anything else. Now, it's the complete opposite. Now I'm known as the country boy. I currently serve as the president of the Seven Lakes FFA chapter, where I raise goats and compete in poultry judging. Growing up, my family attended church, but only on special occasions like Easter or Christmas. To me, that's all that there was to it. I knew that God was real, so I was going to heaven. I thought about God as being more of a religion, not necessarily a relationship. After all, things for me were going smoothly, so I didn't feel like I ever needed Jesus to be in my everyday life. One day, however, my life took an unexpected turn. My dad pulled me aside and told me that he and my mom were getting divorced. At the time, I didn't really understand it. I couldn't see what was to come. But as I got older, I started to feel the effects of having a divided family. It hurt me knowing that my family would never be the same again. Not having my parents together made me feel different from the other kids at school, as well as not being able to afford most of the things that my friends had. It always felt like I had to work so much harder to get some things that other people got so easily. For a while, I would spend some weeks with my mom and some weeks with my dad. To add on to this rough time in my life, my dad became addicted to alcohol. This tore me apart because although my dad was physically there, he wasn't playing the role of my father. I remember it'd be time to go to his apartment, and I would just hope that he hadn't been drinking. But every time, I would be disappointed. This hurt me because I knew that he was a good person and that he cared about me and cared about other people, but he was struggling with an addiction. His alcoholism got worse, and my mom decided to raise me on her own until he got over his disease. My mom did everything in her power to try and give me the best life possible, but it was still hard for me to see some of my friends with complete, loving families and know that I would never have that again. At school, I tried really hard to fit in to avoid the pain that I was actually dealing with. I saw other people get into things that I knew in the back of my mind were not right, like drinking, drugs, and partying. I saw all these things, and I knew that at some point, I would have to make the decision to either follow what they're doing or turn away. I really struggled with this because I really wanted these people to like me, but I didn't want to fall down the same path that my dad did. A friend of mine had seen that I was drifting away in my relationship with the Lord, and they reminded me about Beach Retreat. I had gone before, and I absolutely loved it, but at this point in my life, I was so consumed with all the other things going on that I had forgotten everything that I learned. I never seemed to make time for Jesus. I made several excuses why I couldn't go, like I'd be too busy or I couldn't afford it. But she emphasized that it'd be my last chance to go and I would regret it if I missed it. So I was hesitant, but I ended up applying for a Beach Retreat scholarship that our church offers. Personally, I just want to say thank you for your generosity. Because of that scholarship, I was able to attend that week. I got signed up, and that week completely changed my life. I remember going to worship and singing my heart out, and I began to tear up from the overwhelming love of God. I made new friends there that turned into family and started becoming closer with some of the youth leaders here. It was a time for me to just put away all the junk in my life and completely focus on my relationship with the Lord. There was a spark in me to grow in my relationship with Him that I had never experienced before. I started to realize that I shouldn't try to fix all of my problems and all the things that I'm struggling with before growing in my relationship with God. But I should grow in my relationship with Him first so that those things that I'm struggling with can't block me from the amazing things that He has in store for me. My new friends encouraged me to join the jump team, and I was given opportunities to serve at events like VBS and sixth grade camp. I fell in love with serving and knew that there was nothing I'd rather do with my life. I felt called to ministry, and I'm excited to say that I'll soon be attending Liberty University for a degree in biblical studies. Go Flames. Now looking back, I could have fallen down the wrong path. I was broken and I needed love, but the love of people could not heal my pain. Only the love of God could. God was the father I needed in those rough times in my life. Sometimes before we can mend our relationships with people, we have to be right in our relationship with the Lord. I realized that 3 years had gone by without me seeing my dad, and certain thoughts started to cross my mind, like, does my dad have a relationship with Christ? Or if my dad were to die today, would he go to heaven? These thoughts troubled me because I didn't think that there was anything that I could do to fix anything. And I was right. There was nothing that I could fix, but it was something that God could. I realized that I had never taken the time to pray for my dad, and I began praying that I could see him again and that we could make up for some of the time that we had lost. Thankfully, this past Christmas, me and my dad were reconnected. It was an amazing time as we got to catch up and start working on rebuilding our relationship. But most importantly, I was able to tell him about how God had impacted my life. I let him know that I forgave him for all of his mistakes because I know that God has forgiven all of us for our sins by having Jesus die on the cross for us. Because of Jesus, the chains that are holding us down can be broken. We don't have to deal with all of our pain on our own because Jesus was raised to life again, proving that no form of evil, not even death, can defeat God. Now, me and my dad are still working on rebuilding our relationship, and things aren't completely fixed yet, but now I know that God has me in his hands and that his plan is the best plan. Galatians 4:6 says, "Because you are his sons, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father." When at times I felt like I was lost, God was guiding me the whole time. After all, God is the most loving, most understanding, and most forgiving Father that anybody could ever have. He didn't give up on my dad. He didn't give up on me, and he won't give up on you. Thank you.